What's up, speaker friends? Michele V here, and in this video, we're talking about part number 2 of Share Your Story. You've probably heard gurus and coaches say, share your story, lead with your story. That's what's going to help connect people to you. And in my last video, we were talking about how to be vulnerable in sharing your story and how to do that powerfully. So your story, your experiences, all the things about you really give you the opportunity to connect with people. But in this video, I'm going to share with you the number one thing that I see people do that really breaks that connection, and how to share your story in a way that really impacts people on a higher level, draws them in, and keeps them engaged for an extended period of time. And I promise you, if you do this, I don't care if your story is 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, they are going to stick with you because of the way that you share your story. So and the number one thing that I see people do is they make their story about them, not about the audience. So your story is the story that you share is their story. It's not your story, right? And so it is your story, but you're going to share it in a way that is their story. And I'm going to give you a quick example. A friend of mine shared me this video online, and she's like, oh man, this lady, she's amazing. She has an amazing story. She's so impactful. Let me share it with you. And she was talking about, I don't even remember this lady exactly, but she was talking about how she was really struggling with her business and she came out of it. Of course, we have kind of all have that story, but how she was, a stay-at-home mom. And then she created her business and she was in this moment of depression. And then she came out of the depression, and it was a beautiful story. And at one point she was talking about, guacamole, being just embarrassed of having guacamole all over the place. Whenever her sister or her friends came over, her house was just a mess and she felt like a mess. But she continued to share the story like that, like, hey, I had guacamole all over the place. My life was a mess. I was so embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. And the story that she shared was a powerful story. There were so many things that connected with people. And, she did a pretty good job. But as I was listening to it, I was just shaking my head going, man, she missed so many opportunities to connect with the audience on a deeper level. So, for example, with that guacamole story, and it's all about her, right? If you would listen to her talk, and most people talk, it's all about them. They say I. Next time you've watched somebody's video, you should count how many times they say the word I, me, mine, and count it and see how many times are they talking about themselves. I, me. Like I was so depressed. I had guacamole all over the place. I was so embarrassed. Couldn't get myself out of bed in the morning. I, right? And so whenever people are talking about themselves, this is just human nature. We don't care. Like, they don't care about your story. I don't care about your story. Nobody cares about your story except for the fact that it's going to help me, right? Because whenever, as humans, we care about ourselves, and we're like, but let me ask you, what's the number one topic that you can share with any audience, and it's their favorite topic? That topic is them, right? Whenever you talk about them, that is the favorite thing. People love talking about themselves, right? And so whenever I share the guacamole story, instead of sharing about depression, saying I, me, what I would do instead is say, hey, look, I got so depressed, I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. Have you ever had those moments where you wake up and you look at the ceiling, you're saying an internal prayer, and you're just like, please help me get out of bed in the morning. And your legs feel like lead. It takes everything in you to even just step out of the bed. And it sounds ridiculous in those moments whenever everybody else is looking at you and they're like, come on, just get out of the bed. How hard is this? But literally it feels like a monumental task, right? That's where I was. I was in such a mess that I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. And I was so embarrassed whenever people would come over to my house because there was guacamole all over the floor. Have you ever had someone show up unexpectedly and you're like, yay, I'm so glad they're here. It's so great. I want to see them. I want to connect with them. But, just don't look, like, avert your eyes, and you're apologizing because you just feel like a total mess, right? So you see how I drew you into that story. I said, hey, have you ever had guacamole all over the place and you're just so embarrassed that somebody showed up unannounced and now they have to look at your trash and you just feel so embarrassed and you blah, 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 right? Like, I'm drawing you into this common experience because most people have had sometime in their life where they were laying in bed and they're like, yes, it feels like lead. You can't even roll out of the bed, right? And your people that are going to connect with your story are going to be those people that had that exact same experience. And as you draw them in and you're like, yeah, remember those times whenever you're just looking up at the ceiling, you're saying a silent prayer, and you're just like, it takes everything to just draw that blanket over to step your foot out of the bed. And they're just immediately taken back to that place. And they're like, yes, you're talking about me. She's talking, how does she know what I'm thinking, right? And because of that, you connect so much more powerfully with your audience. So next time you share your story, don't, pay attention to I, me, and look for those moments of opportunity when there can be a shared experience and there's a shared emotion with it. And then immediately flip it to them and say, have you ever, or do you know when, or have you ever had this experience, right? And you can want to go into that common experience that you have with them, and it will impact so much more. All right. So handy tip for today. If you want to join us, come join us at the InspireSpeakerNetwork.com to RSVP for our next network party, to join us for more tips like this, where we go live every other Tuesday. We connect, we share tips like this, and we partake, which is the most important thing. So we will see you there at the next network party.